I'm going to talk about how you can power up your Power Pages applications with the help of Power Pages Web API. This is a feature which can help you bring out the real potential in terms of data, managing security, and creating a beautiful UI for your user base. Before we start, a little bit about me. I am Ritika Agrawal. I work as a Power Platform Partner Consultant with By the Devs Consulting. I am a Microsoft MVP and MCT for business applications. If you would like to connect with me, I have my LinkedIn QR code on the screen. And on Twitter, you can search me by Agrawal underscore Ritika. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on my email ID, ritika.agrawal@bythedevs.com. And finally, I am also the user group leader, one of the user group leaders of Hyderabad Power Platform User Group. If you are around in Hyderabad, you can be there in one of our in-person meetups. If you're from a different place, we do organize the virtual meetups as well, so you can join us. That's about me. Now, moving on to what we have in this session today. The first thing I'm going to cover about is what is Power Pages Web API and where it is useful. Then we'll look at the different supported operations, we'll look at the security, and finally, we'll have a demo. Okay, so Power Pages Web API is a set of rules and protocols that you can use in Power Pages to bring out the data from Microsoft Dataverse. One thing to remember is this is something which only works with Microsoft Dataverse to get the data from various different tables. There are some limitations, though, we'll talk about those in some time, but uh, if somebody has already worked on Power Pages application, then they must be aware there are basic forms and then there are multi-step forms, which we usually use to feed the data into the system, basically for performing update or create operations. Apart from that, we have the list controls, which we use to show the data from our tables. So we have controls, but when it comes to design, at times those controls are not what your client requires. In those cases, we use Power Pages Web API with the help of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to bring out the data from your database. So Power Pages Web API, it allows you to do CRUD operation. And when I say CRUD, you already know that it is create, read, update, and delete operations. And you can also make it work in a way where you can connect it to a service using different other methods. Now, when it comes to web API, I can also have something where I make changes to a table record in the database, but behind the scenes, there is a Power Automate which is triggered on an automatic trigger, like when something is updated or when something is created. So even though the web API, it cannot directly connect to your external services, you can use it with the help of Microsoft Power Automate, and it is a very powerful tool when it comes to allowing different kind of integrations with the Power Pages. Now, I have some key features listed out. CRUD operation I already mentioned. Then we have authentication and authorization. So, as a developer or as the person who is configuring the Power Pages application, you'll have control over who will have access to what data. Because, see, if you are building an external application, having control over data is one of the most important aspects. If I am showing, or if I am not even showing, but my API is able to return the data, which the user should not have access to, then it is a risk. So you can manage the authentication and authorize who will have access to your data at a very granular level. Like, I just want to give read access to basic users, but if somebody is a client administrator, I want to give them create, read, update, and delete, like all four operations. So Power Pages Web API allows you to do that. You can define your own API endpoints, which you can use for your tailored needs. Then it also has support for RESTful services. So if you have a REST API, you can get access to it using the Power Pages web API. Now, if you have already used Power Pages, you might have seen, like when you use lists specifically, there is a portal caching. So if you made a change on the database, according to the Power Pages caching schedule, it clears off every 5 minutes. So there may be a chances that the data you have on the screen is not refreshed yet, and it will reflect the latest changes in a couple of minutes. With the Power Pages web API, it operates within the client server architecture. So whatever time it was taking for the data to load using a list or something, here with the web API, that time is reduced. It is secure. You can send any kind of data using these APIs, and it will return the response in a secured manner. We'll look at the tokens in a minute. Like when I'll do the demo, I'll show you how each user's unique token is passed at the time you're making the request. Coming to what is it required to enable web API on your Power Pages application. The first prerequisite is you should have provided access or permissions to your table. So when I'm saying that, I mean if I have a table in Dataverse, but if I have not provided any table permissions for it, it will not work. It will not return any data. So it should be something you configure beforehand, as it might take some time to actually debug what the issue was. So prerequisite is you define all the necessary permissions, and you are then able to create the or enable the table for web API. So not every table is available directly to be used as a web API. You will have to enable each table specifically. So first, you need to create an endpoint where you define the different API operations. You'll need to provide which authentication methods you want to allow. Basically, it would depend on the user who is logging in. And finally, you will integrate your API in Power Pages. It requires some code for calling these web API requests. But even if you do not have any experience with JavaScript or coding, Microsoft documentation is a very good resource where you'll get snippets of what is required. So once you get a hang of it, you'll be able to write web API calls, even though it's not supported directly in the editor, you'll have to write code for it. So it's not a big thing. You can get the code snippets from the Microsoft documentation. Then I have added one thing for the authentication method. If somebody is not aware of what is included in the authentication methods, Power Pages, it allows different kind of authentication mechanisms for your users. Like you can log in using a basic authentication, which is a username and a password. You can enable OAuth 2.0. It can be for B2C, it can be for the Azure Active Directory authentication, etc. You can have API key. So these are just the different authentication methods which are allowed on Power Pages. Now, to use Web API in Power Pages, what are the different things you can do? So, in terms of operation, you have different get, post, put, delete, patch, etc. operations. Sorry. So now, if you have used any other REST API, you might be familiar with these methods. If you are not, that's okay. I can explain. So if you want to retrieve the data from your system, you would do a get request. If you want to create new data into your system or into your table, you'll do a post. If you want to update something, you'll do a put request. If you want to delete, that means you will use the delete operation. So you can use these web APIs to perform different kind of operations on your Power Pages application. Now, one thing is handling response. So, like once I made the request, there is something which would be returned. It would either be an error or it would be the set of records that I requested. So, when you are writing the web API functions, You should handle the responses because that's what you're looking for. But at the same time, it is important to do the error handling as well in a case something goes wrong. Maybe my user was not authenticated. Maybe my user did not have the permissions. But to provide a proper or intuitive user experience to your audience, you should handle all the scenarios which a user could see, because otherwise the user is just stuck on a page and they don't know what to do next. Now, if I talk about the common use cases, here you would use Power Pages Web API if you want to connect or integrate with third party services, if you want to automate your workflows. So, as I mentioned, the automated trigger, you make some changes to Dataverse, and that change is picked up by the Power Automate. You can have real time data interactions because if I'm making a call using Power Pages Web API, the data would be returned in real time. It doesn't take much time to return the data, and I'll show you in a minute, like when we are on the demo, how that data is returned. Now, before we look at what it does, let's talk about the challenges and their solutions a bit. When you're working with Power Pages Web API, you may encounter challenges such as rate limits. So, with every component in Power Platform, not specifically Power Pages, but based on the licensing you have, like in Model Raven or Canvas, you would be limited to a specific number of calls you can make in a minute, in a day, or in a month. Similarly, on Power Pages, you have the same rate limits. So, to avoid using any unnecessary calls, you should be mindful of what code you are writing. So, for example, if I want to show the data for like a specific table, maybe like courses. Now, now these courses are filtered by their technology. So, if I use Web API to get the data into my system, if I write the code in a way whenever you change a category, it makes a call again and then brings you the most recent results. A simpler way would be you create everything on the page because the user will eventually have access to those. You create everything and then you use JavaScript to toggle the visibility of different components. So you select a category, only its courses are visible. If you select a different category, those courses are available. So here, when you put a configuration like this, you're minimizing the number of times your code will make a call to the web API. So be a little mindful of the rate limits because when you release the application to the end users, they'll use it like we use any other application. We'll try to do continuous F5s, we'll try to try to change data to look for something meaningful or to find the data I'm looking for. So to avoid those scenarios, try to reduce the number of times you're making call back to Dataverse. Then there should be data consistency. So to ensure that the data is returned on different places is what you are expecting. At times, what happens is when you have Web API enabled for multiple tables, you forget what the API you were using on a specific page. Then when you are on a different page, the table might be different. So ensure that there is data consistency in terms of what you are displaying to individual user. And this could include different filters you can apply in the query. Then the security, always be sure that you are only exposing data to the audience that they are intended to see. So I'll give you an example. Now, the courses application or the example I used earlier for rate limits, in terms of security, let's say I have an application, a Power Pages application, which is hosted for multiple organizations. But if I am from organization A, I should only get the courses for organization A. So there is one thing which is filtering, like fetch XML you can use or filters you can use to get the results, like get me the results which are from this organization. But there is another thing which is table permission. So the person will never be able to see the courses of organization 2. Then why give the permission for that? So Do not give global access right away. Look for the inheritance in terms of parent account or parent contact, and then only you provide the permissions to the courses. Because as a user, I do not need to see the organization B courses. So apply your security and permissions in a way where it is most efficient. All right, so now let's move on to our demo, and I will switch this to the Power Pages editor. This is what I have open here, and you'll see I have a page for Web API. Right now, if you see in the editor, I have nothing because I'm not using any of the out-of-the-box controls here. I can use them like integrate it with my existing setup, but for now, for this demo, I'll show you the code we have. In case you have not used Power Pages before, there is an integration directly with Visual Studio Code. So it is a browser one. You can click on this button, it opens something like this. And here you have all your web pages. So what I'm looking for is my web API page, and you'll see there is an HTML file, there is a CSS file, and there is one for JavaScript. So if you're familiar with the web development technology like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it will be a little bit easier for you to build out the pages. Like you can build nice ones. In case you're not familiar with these, no problem. You learn slowly when you are working on this. Because if I show you my code, this is something you'll be able to relate logically. On my HTML file, I just have some controls here to construct the layout of my page. This is not something which we are doing here with the web API, as I want my data to be available dynamically. First, I'll show you how this current page is working. Then I'll show you what are the things required for the backend setup. Now, if I look at my JavaScript code, this is what I have. And I'll show you the page also. So web API, this one. Mm, okay, there we go. It is opening. So this is a page which I have named web API because this is for the web API. Now I'll go to the Dataverse to show you the table. So I have Power Platform Classmates technical event here. It's a virtual event and it has this date and time. So start date and end date. We can format this to just show the dates and the time in proper format, but I just added the keys directly so I can show you that we are getting the data back from database. Where this data is coming from, if I go to the table and I have this Copilot company events, and if you see here, I have the event name. So this is not hard coded. We are able to create this UI from the data we have in Microsoft Dataverse with the help of some code. So if you see, we have the event names, we have the locations, we have the start and the end date. So this is what I see on my screen. If you see, here I have one wrapper function. I'll explain it in a bit, but this is the function which helps us make the web API calls. Then this is the part where we are making the web API call. So type is get request because I just want to get the records. What is the URL? This is the URL. And then once I got the response, I am creating this in the form of cards. So this is the basic implementation I have. And also there is the CSS file for adding the styling. So like show me this shadow here and make this with this border radius in these colors, etc. So to add the styling, this was just an overview of the steps I have followed in terms of code. Let's look at the back end and then we'll come back to this to relate once again. So when you want to enable web API on a specific table, there are certain steps that you'll need to do. And those include creating site settings. So if I go to site settings, and this is the Power Pages management app that I have open, and I'll search for web API, web API. So if you see, this is my table, Copilot company events. And if I look at the properties, here I have this as the logical name, and you'll find the same value here. So Web API is not enabled on all tables by default. You'll have to enable on a case by case basis. And before I show you this, let's check the documentation. Okay. So earlier I was saying like uh, I usually go to this documentation whenever I'm configuring web API because at times even I forget the steps. What was the first, what was the second, and at times I get confused between where to put the logical name and where to put the schema name, to be honest. So going back here on the documentation is going to help you a lot. And if I show you this part, so to enable any table on the web API, you'll have to enable these site settings. We're just using the first two because those are required to make the request. If you want to enable or disable the errors, the inner errors, or the OData filters, then you can enable the last two settings. But first two are mandatory. So what does these settings have? If you see here, web API slash your table's logical name. So here it should be entered as the logical name. So logical name slash enabled and its value is going to be true. So if I open it, name is web API, company events enabled, and yes, it is enabled. Next setting is once it is enabled, what are the fields that you would like to show? So web API, your company events table, again logical name, fields, and star. Star means I am allowing all fields. So if you want to restrict fields here, you can do that. Otherwise, you can allow all. When you enable a table in site settings for web API, it exposes the endpoint. So if you remember earlier, I mentioned like you can create your custom endpoint. So what I'll do here is API. So how this URL is constructed, this is your portal URL. So I have by the devs that dash ritikaagarwal.powerappsportals.com slash underscore API and then your table's schema name or set name. So, what do I mean by that? When you have a table, you have a logical name for your table and there is a set name. So, you get the logical name from properties or you can get it from here as well, tools and logical name, and there is one set name. So, in the site settings, when you're enabling, it accepts the logical name. But when you're making a call to this, it accepts the set name. So what I'll do is I will copy this set name and paste it again. When I do that, this is where it will make the request to my table and it will return me the data in the form of JSON response. Here, if you see, I have different things. So what is the event location? And there would be name somewhere also. We have, I think it is on top. This is the type, which is conference. Yeah, there we go. So this is the event name. So the web API returns the different fields that I have on my table. Now, this was a GET request, so I could directly do this in my browser like this, but it won't work for the update, delete, or create operations. You'll have to test those out using code only. Now, if I go back on the fields and let's say I only want to allow several fields. So I'll copy the logical names from here. I want the event name. So instead of all fields, just get me the name and the event location. Where is that field? I know the values, so I'll just search for it. So there we go. We have the event location. And for every field, you'll have to write a comma separated value, comma, and then my end date. And we'll also get the start date. Mm, there we go. Start and added. So now I made changes to this setting for specifying what fields I want. Just to clear out the caching, and refresh. It's loading now. Maybe the caching is cleared and is not enabled for Web API. Oh, I see. See, this is one of the errors I am getting as star is not enabled. Now that I have only custom columns here defined, I'll say this select equals and my values. When I do that, now it gives me the return. Because star is not enabled, it will not work on all attributes. So I'll have to select the columns that I provided. And if I try to do something like maybe add a column which is not enabled, so let's say event capacity maybe, and I'll get its logical name. So if you see, I added a column which is not enabled for Web API. So it gave me an error attribute this event capacity in this table is not enabled for Web API. So here you can control what data will be exposed on your APIs, and I do not need to provide all four. If I just need the name here, I'll just provide name and it will return me the name, which is this. So Power Platform Classmates Technical Event and Hyderabad Power Platform User Group, something like that. With the help of API, this Power Pages Web API, you can do select, you can get top one. So like and dollar top equals one. So now I just got the first one. If I want to do some kind of other filter, so I can add it accordingly. So like dollar filter EQ equals, and let's say this oh, EQ Power Platform Classmates Technical Event. When I do that, okay, invalid characters. Usually, one thing you can follow here is when you are trying to create these kind of URLs, it may be possible that you do not know the format. You can use XRM toolbox, and there is a allowed tool in it which is called as Fetch XML Builder. When you build the Fetch XML, you can put the Fetch XML, or it gives you the option to get this Web API endpoint URL. So you can get these values from there. And let me remove this and try something else. Dollar sort equals this. Oh no, this ascending sort query parameter is not supported. Oh, sorry, it should be order. Hmm. Order by, yeah, order by. So now it sorted these in ascending order. Earlier, I was getting this Hyderabad Power Platform user group as the second one and the Power Platform classmates as the first one. But now that I have added this order by, I can sort it ascending or descending. And as you can see how fast it was to get these results back in time. Now, let's go and check the prerequisite. So if I go to setup, in the security, I have the stable permissions. So I have given access to this company events, and that's how it is giving me this data. Now let's remove everything. So I am giving no permissions to anybody on this table. Let's sync. And you can see now you do not have permission. So this was the prerequisite. First thing you'll do here is enable permissions on your table. So if I give read access because that's what I want right now, once I have the permission given, then only you'll go in and update the site settings. Otherwise, this is not available. So now let's refresh. and the data is back. I can also add one other keyword, which is and dollar count equals true. So if you see, here is a new key added, which is for counting the number of rows that are returned. If I remove this, you'll notice that these two keys basically are not available anymore. So here you see the results like this. You can copy this URL and you can use it in the web API. Now, if I come back to the JavaScript code I had earlier, we are passing the URL as this, and it will not work on my page anymore. And the reason is we now have some columns. So if I refresh this one, you'll see that nothing is visible. And if I inspect and see the console, here this gave me a forbidden error. So to fix this, what we can do is we will copy this part and I'll add it here. So now the query is appropriate. I'll just wait for it to save. Once it is saved, clear out the cache and we'll refresh. I'll clear the console. So now see, the data is back. This is how you can control what data is visible. And if I go to the documentation, you'll find the different type of operations. This is the list of tables that are not supported for Web API. These are the out of the box Power Pages tables. Now, if I go to query data with Power Portals Web API, and there must be that code that I'm looking for. 1 second. Yeah, there we go. So this is the wrapper Ajax function. You'll see that I have this code here. In order for your web API to work, you need to have this code added to the page. Right now, it's just a single page I want, so I added the code here in this JS file. But if you have a common JS file on your Power Pages, you can add it there. So this is the code that defines our request token. So if you see, it got the token and then it passed that token so the page knows who is trying to make the operation. Here, if I come back to show you the different operations, we have create a record, we have update and delete, you have associate and dissociate for N is to N. So refer to this documentation when you want to set up Power Pages Web API. It has the operation with the snippets of what each of these can do, and it makes it really convenient to show the data according to your format. Because see, I can add a list, I can add a form, those are out of the box features. But in some cases you come across scenarios where it's not uh, up to the design. So client wants a beautiful application with their own custom cards, like the ones I have on my screen. So in those scenarios, Power Pages Web API can be very useful. And you'll notice one thing, like it's undefined here. Even though in my code I have defined the keys and it was working earlier when I had the permissions on everything. The reason is this. So in the select, I just have the name. I did not get the other columns. So if I do this, comma, and this is the whole thing, let's copy this part and we will replace it here. Save. Oh, sorry. I sync and refresh. And now I got the values. So while defining the properties, if you are restricting columns, then you can uh, add or make sure just you have added all the columns that you need. Otherwise, it will show undefined and you'll have to catch that error. One more thing, if you see here, I just have the success. So here we should also add fail. What happens when it fails? That is the part of error handling, where if this request is successful, I know it will be, so it got me the results. But otherwise, if it fails due to network error, due to permissions, anything, how do we want to use that? So you can add proper error handling. I don't think we have time to go through that because I have one quick topic that I want to discuss, but you can try out the success and the fail conditions for error handling. One last thing I want to show you is the column permission. So right now, this is a feature which is only available for the web APIs. As you can see here, column permissions are currently only applicable for web API permissions. So in a case where you are enabling Power Pages Web API on a table and you want to limit a column just to a specific set of users. So you can create this profile, create the permissions here, and then you add the web roles who will have access to this. So this way, if I do not want my location to be revealed to everybody, just to a limited set of users, then I can set that permission on the field or on the column level, and it will reflect on my portal directly.
Hi,
Okay,
Radhika. Just a time check. We
yeah,
have
I'm
like
done,
10 minutes. All
Niju.
right. Perfect.
Um, I mean, finally, I just have this feedback QR code. If you have any feedback for us, anything you would like to improve in the events, let us know by scanning this QR code.
Thank you, Ritika. Uh,
Okay.
Audience, are there any questions? There are no questions in the chat as of now.
Okay.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Ritika. It was really helpful to understand, especially people, how to bring data with this additional security and these constraints. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
now we have a 30 minutes break, everyone. So please be online. We have more exciting sessions waiting. I hope first half of the day was really productive and exciting. So we have more sessions lined up. So we'll have a 30 minutes break now. We will see you soon with the next speaker in 30 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so hey all, welcome back. I hope you had some rest and were able to relax a bit. Now let's continue with our next session. And next session is by Muhammad Adnan, and
Yeah,
he's going to talk about four levels of row level security in Power BI. So, hey
yeah,
Adnan, can you hear us?
yeah. I can hear you. Good
Okay,
afternoon, good
perfect.
morning, good evening.
Good
Yeah,
afternoon. Yeah, and thank you so much for coming here today with us and presenting this topic.
yeah. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so much
all
for
right,
having me as well. Okay.
perfect.
All right. So can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
All right. So let me share my PPT here.
All right, I
Okay.
can see your
So
screen.
all right. No, why it's little slow. All
Okay.
right. So I will start here. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, wherever you are, and welcome to this amazing session, which is Power Platform Classmate, which is happening since yesterday. I hope you are getting too much of information of various topics here on this year's sessions. So today we are going to talk about multiple levels of complex role level security in Power BI, which is basically segregated into four different levels. So we'll talk about that one by one. I hope some of them you may not be aware of that, I believe, because that is going to something which is level of complex here. So before going into that in detail, a little bit about myself. So I'm Mohammad Adnan. So I'm an author of a book which is Iron Does Not Rust Alone, which I recently published. and I'm a Microsoft MVP and MCT as well. I have like 17 plus of experience in various Microsoft technologies, especially in Power BI. It's like almost nearly 8 years of experience I have. And then I have industry experience, which is manufacturing, supply chain, construction, and health force, and also in healthcare as well. And also, I have my own YouTube channel, which is Stake 18, which mainly focused on Microsoft Stack, and especially in Power BI and Power Platform Stack. So you can just check out that videos as well. And then moving on to our topic. So multiple levels of complex role security. So here I segregate this into 5 different levels here. Basically, even though the topic itself is says like 4, but here I defining is to be 5 because I will show you the step-by-step process how it actually works. So first of all, as you're aware of, the first thing which is happening here is the static row level security, which we usually follow. So we filter one table and one column manually, which is, for example, English country equal to Germany, for example, then it's going to filter the data accordingly. So that's how the static one filter. And then I split it into the second one, which is static two-table filtration. So one is you can filter on a country table dimension, which you have in your model. Another is you can filter on the category, which is the bikes category, which you have. So this is the second level of static. These are all two of them are static itself. So you can create these roles in Power BI Desktop and publish into Power BI Service. And then we need to assign these roles to a specific group of users. Then once they open up the report, then this is going to filter the data accordingly. So this is every time if something comes up new, then you have to create a role again in Power BI Desktop, and then you have to publish again, and you have to assign to the user. So these are all the tedious process, continuous process which you have to do. So it depends on the developer, and you have to do every time the new thing comes up. So in order to avoid that, so we have another one, which is a dynamic table. So filtering using a table from database with relationship between the tables or using DAX function. So we need to create a dimension table with which it contains the information about the login user and also the access to this specific content for them. Like if they want to filter it by Germany, someone wants to filter it by India. So it can be filtered based on the login. So we need to create a table in Power BI Desktop, and then we have to map a relationship between the table in order to work dynamically based on the login user. This is how it will work. Now here is the complex thing starts here. So now the requirement is dynamic hierarchy one, which is basically you want to filter multiple columns in a table. So multiple columns in a table and also from a different table as well. So these are the two dynamic one hierarchy level, which is category, subcategory, and then the product, for example. Or else if you want to have optional one, so you want to filter the country or you want to filter it by category. So there are different types of filtration where it is requirement from the business that we need to filter the data. So how can be this achievable in Power BI? So we're going to talk about that one by one here. So as an example of these things, how this will look like. So let's talk about the first. I don't want to talk about the static one because that's usually happen, but I'm going to show you that during demo. When it comes to dynamic thing, so let's assume that we have a table which contains the email ID of the login user, and also we have a column with country, state name, city name, and category. So these are the business requirement. Let's assume that we need to filter the data accordingly. So based on this relationship, we need to filter our data. For example, if you have stores in different parts of the world and you want to give access to certain level of people, certain access for them. Let's say, for example, for store supervisor, you want to give access to particular store for them. So we have a store on this location, on the city name, and then you have to share only those information. Then you need to have specify on that. So here we need to create a relationship between this and the main table so that it can filter accordingly to them. And again, the next step is like they have a store manager. So we have a store and then we have a store manager. So they want to filter it by city, state, and country. So irrespective of any category on that store, so you want to filter it by store manager. So in that case, what you can do is kind of dynamic hierarchy. So they have to filter the country, they have to filter the state, they have to filter the city as well. So all these three things they have to filter, and then they have to display the data for the user logs in. If a store manager logs in, then they have to filter accordingly. So this is one of the requirement here. And the third requirement is the region manager. If there is a people who is working on a particular region, let's assume that they are working on the Australia and particular region or Germany, for example, the Hamburg state name. So if they have access to that, In that case, we need to give access only to state and the country. This also comes under the dynamic thing here. So here I mentioned about all, you can see it here on the category column. And here the city name is also showing all here. The reason is because irrespective of any city, irrespective of any category for that particular thing, they have to visible everything. So this is actually the main challenge here. So as a business user point of view, they will ask that I need access to everything, whatever is inside to that particular state or country. But as a data point of view, it is really not easy to manage these things as a part of row level security. So as a user point of view, we just mentioned this all. It means that it has to give access to everything, whatever inside to that. If it is in category 1, then it has to show all the category. If it is in the city name, then it has to show all the city name. So that is for the region manager. Now, when it comes to the next level, which is, for example, the country manager. So they need to access to everything within the country. So in that case, we have to filter only the country here. So for all these three things, we can use the dynamic one hierarchy itself, because this is going to be a hierarchical structure way of accessing. So we can adopt this one. I will tell you that how this can be done. And finally, which we have here, country category manager. So there may be chances like there are requirement like they have a manager where they're specifically focused on a particular category for a country. So for example, here you can say United Kingdom, they are specific for the bikes. So one manager will be there, they are specifically focused on the bikes throughout the country. There may be chances that there is country people working on that, specifically focused on the shoes for that, like footwear on that part. So even though we manufacture multiple other things, but they are not responsible for those things. They are only responsible for a particular category. So they have to filter the country as well as the category. This is kind of optional here. I can filter the country as well as the category. This is not a hierarchical nature. So in that case, how it can be done is like we can use another approach, which is dynamical one optional here. And same also we have a category manager. So here we don't need to worry about any kind of country, state name or city name. We can just directly use the category column and then the filter the data so that we can assign it to the business user. Based on that login, they can able to view that information. And finally, we have a CEO who is responsible for everything. So he need to look into all the things what is happening inside the company. So there is no filter has to be applied for that particular thing. This also comes under dynamical one hierarchical here. So how this can be achieved is we'll now look into that. So let me reshare again. So stop share and reshare my screen again. If I'm going too fast, please let me know. I will just slow it down. All right. So you can see my screen, right? Can you just confirm me now?
Yes, Adnan, we can see your screen.
All right. Thank you. So this is my usual Power BI adventure works, which is available on the internet. You can also download the same Excel files, CSV files, and then you can build your reports on that. So here, if I go to modeling, we have a manage roles options on the top ribbon. And then when you click on that, this is going to open up a window where you can define the row level security here. So this is going to be a new UI. I mean, recently introduced one. So we'll just talk about one, first of all, the static one. So static one table filter, where these are the list of tables available in my model. And here you can see we have a filter icon. If you click on that one, Germany, this is a new UI where you can select the column here and then you can define the parameter how you want, whether it is equal to, in, greater than, less than kind of thing. You can manually key the information here, like Germany here. If you want to add multiple, then you can also use that. But if you are not familiar with this one, you want to switch it to tax function, like the complex thing, it cannot be happen here. So you can just click on the switch to tax editor. So this is how it will be look like, where you can just add the column name and then specify the parameter in equal to kind of thing. And then we need to define the value of that. So here I'm just filtering dim geography, where the column name is English country category name in German. So this is all about the static one. So let's check it out. So when you click on that, and if I go to the model view here, just to give you the overview about how the model looks like. So here you can see the category table which we filtered, dim geography basically. So we have the fact internet sales, sales territory, dim geography, I have it here. And this is actually filtered to dim customer, and the customer is going to filter the fact sales table. This is a Snowflake schema. This is not a star schema. The reason is because the fact table is connected to the product, and the product is actually subdivided into subcategory, and from that is going to category. So this is dimension and then dimension. So this is a Snowflake schema which we have. And now let's have a look into that. So view as, I'm not going to show it in the Power BI service because everything we can test it out here in Power BI Desktop itself. So now just clicking on the static one table here, the first one, and then click on OK. I think we filtered this to Germany. So let's see how this filter the data here. And here I have logged in here the user Adnan/PC. That's my PC name, which is showing up here, which is the user principal name. But if you use this in desktop, this will be taken up your login user. But if it goes in Power BI service, then it will be your proper UPN here, which is your email ID. Okay, this is taking too much time. Yeah, it's filtered here. So now you see it is showing up here as a Europe here. And this is also on the country. It is showing up here. This thing. And this is not showing up here anything on the center one because this is a static one. This is not linked with this table here. I will come to this topic, which is the center. You can see the table. I will come to that one later on. But here you can just look into the other visual which is showing up here. It is filtered to Europe because Europe, Germany is in Europe itself. And here we can see what are the columns which we have. I have this English product name and country name. So if I just drill down here, I can see only the Germany which is showing up here. And that's how it is. So now if I click on stop viewing, then this is going to switch back again, everything to normal. Okay, so this is about using the static one table. So we are filtering this one, we can assign this to the other users. And once they log in, it's going to show that information to them. Now, moving on to the next one, if I click on manage roles again. Okay, so here the next one, which is static two table. So let's say if you want to filter two table, like here we just saw about DIM category, geography, which is in Germany. And also I want to filter it about DIM product category, which is equal to bikes here. So by default, it's in the UI itself. You want to switch to DAX editor, you click here. So here it is showing up here, category name equal to bike, which is exactly it is going to match that. So static table 2. So if I click on the view as, and then static table 2, and then click on OK. Is filtering one by one. Now we have a Europe, and here you can see on the top, we just saying now only bikes. Previously it was showing bikes, clothing, and accessories, and now it is showing only bikes here because it's filtered to Germany as well as the bikes category here. So this is all about static 1 and static 2 information. Now the third one is the dynamic theme. For dynamic theme, I just want to switch to another Power BI file. The reason I will show you also why I'm switching it to another file. So first of all, we need to create a table where it contains information about our row level security, which I have it here. If I switch here to data tab, and then RLS import table, where this contains the email ID of the login user. And then I have different columns where I want to filter it out with that one. So here I'm specifying the country name, state name, city name, category, and then the sales territory group here. So all these things here, yeah.
Actually, I'm not able to understand you filtering static Germany and category. So if I log in Power BI services by my account, so is filter also credential by email ID or only category or location?
Okay, so that's a good one. So I just want to mention two things here. First of all, if you want to apply row level security in Power BI service, the user need to have a viewer permission on the workspace, on the report itself, the read permission. If they have a builder permission or if they have a contributor, then it's not going to work the row level security first. And the next thing here to your question, if you assign a category for your email ID, then it's going to filter that particular category for you.
So static, we need two category, email ID and location of whatever Germany and like city. So we need to define two in static or only one.
So here it may open up again here. So static one, right?
Yes.
Static one I defined here Germany. So this is just filtering the data here in our model in Power BI. But in Power BI service, this is going to show you the one role in the Power BI service in the Power BI, in the dataset setting. So once you go on that one, you need to assign an email ID for that particular role. Then only this is going to work. Let's assume that you publish a report in Power BI service and your business user doesn't have access to this Power BI semantic model or Power BI report. So whenever you share this report to the end user directly without assigning anything on the row level security, they are going to see the blank report because you have not assigned them any role. If you have created any role in Power BI Desktop, then you need to assign that user for a particular role. Even if it is static or dynamic, you still have to assign for that particular people.
Okay. So can you, after this, finish, if you have some time, so can you explain in Power BI services also?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I will show you that. Correct. Thank you. Okay, so moving on here. So we have this table here with all these things, information, what we have access here. So now if I look into the relationship between this and the main table, this is RLS import table. And for now, for this example, I'm just filtering this here, the category column. As you can see here, we have a category column, and here also we have a category. And if I double click here, it's open up this relationship edit window, where this is showing up here category column, and this is also category column. And here the cardinality is showing up here many to one because it contains many values on the category. That's obvious. And this is the dimension table, so it's going to contain only unique record here. But here we need to make two things here. One is we need to enable this cross filter direction to be both the direction because it has to filter the RLS table as well as to the main table. And also we need to click on apply security filter on both the directions. Usually when you work in Power BI, the security filter goes from one to many itself. It's not going to pass from many to one. So in order to work on many to one relationship, then you have to check this option, apply security filter in both the directions. It means if you filter on the DIM product category, then it's going to filter the RLS import table. If you filter the RLS import table, then it's going to filter the DIM product category as well. As the DIM product category is linked with all the other dimensions, if I switch back to this one, DIM product category is connected to subcategory is connected to product, and product is connected to the fact table. So this is going to filter all these things by default. So that's the reason I'm just using the RLS import table connected to the DIM product category, and then we can build our roles here. So if I go back again here to the second report, and on the modeling view, if I click on manage roles, and then here I can see I have a dynamic one table here. For this, actually, I'm not applying any kind of filters on any of the dimension table. I'm just creating a filter on the table, which is on RLS import table, which is the one which we manually added the information where it contains the email ID information of the user. So here I'm specifying the table name, which is RLS import table, and then email ID is equal to lower of the user principal name. So why I'm using up here the lower is because lower in the sense is going to convert all the value, whatever it is in capital case or small case, is going to be converted into lower case, small case itself. And then matching a small and a small will be easier for us because sometimes this user principal name is not exactly the login username. To be safe, it's actually going to be UPN in Azure portal, where there will be chances that your username can be, like for example, Muhammad Adnan, M can be capital, Adnan can be, A can be capital on that part. So in that case, there may be chances you may have some case sensitive issues, even though Power BI doesn't support the case sensitive thing, but Power Query does. But still, I prefer to go with the lower itself in that case. So you can mention this logic here and then click on close. If you want to look into the UI, how this looks like, let me open up that here. Yeah, this is how it will look like. So let me also hide this. This is the static one we filtered here, DIM geography. This is the static two. This is the one. So lower RLS import table equal to 1. This is a colorful look and feel. So I thought this will be easier to understand. So this is from import table, and this is a user principal name. So now what we can do, we can just take an example of the user. For example, this thing, dynamic one table, and then we'll have a look here. So as I've logged in here as Adnan PC, which is in Power BI Desktop, if I click on view as, and then just checking this option, dynamic one table, and this time I need to select other user because I just want to look on behalf of other user. So you can click on this one and then paste the username, which I copied here, which is Martaville Clothing, and then click on OK. This is going to filter two things. One is the category, another is also the city name. But for now, this is going to just filter the category because that's what we have built the relationship between the import table and the category table here. Even though the volume is less, this is still taking time. Yeah. All right. So on the top, you can see it is filtered here instead of my name, which is showing up here, the login username, which I mentioned, and it's filtered category to clothing here. And it's also filter all the other things which is on this table, but in reality, it is just filtering the category table. On the center visual, you can see it here, it's showing up North America, Europe, and Pacific as well. This is not just filtering the Australia here. The reason is because we just made a relationship between the RLS import table and only the category table. We have not filtered this with the geography table. If you do so, then it's going to filter that. But for this testing purpose, I'm just filtering out one use case here. So this is about dynamic one information. So this is how it can be. So once you create this relationship and then you can publish into publish service and then you need to assign that. I will show you after this one. So moving on to the next topic, which is dynamic one hierarchy here. So how this can be achieved is, please be assured that this is a little bit lengthy process. So if I switch back to my first Power BI report and then click on stop viewing here and manage roles. Okay, so this is one dynamic one hierarchy here, which with three of the things we saw, and the fourth one is dynamic one hierarchy. So here you can see I just filtered here on the two part, which is on RLS import table. This is nothing but it's just showing up the information about which user has logged in. And also I just use here in the dim category, sorry, dim geography, a lengthy calculation here. So this is also not in the terms of colorful in order to easily understand. So I just copied the information here on the PPT. So what we are done here. So first of all, I'm just using this DAX function in the RLS import table in order to filter the information about lower of the user principal name. This is just for me to understand whether it is filtered correctly or not. And the first report table, I mean the first Power BI one, there is no relationship between the RLS import table and dim category. You see, there is no relationship here. Please remind me also, I will also show you the reason why I have not made relationship here. Because we are just taking the information from the RLS import table and dynamically assigning using a DAX function in order to filter the data here. That is what we are doing up here. So in dim geography table, I'm just writing this measure here, which is where username. I'm taking the login username here, and then doing all these things filter here. First of all, I'm taking the filtered value of the cities, calculate table in a virtual table, values of the RLS import city name with this email ID filtered on that part. So this is going to take a virtual table where it contains information about the cities for that particular user based on this RLS import table. And now I'm taking all the cities from dim geography table as a kind of reference for me. And the third one, I'm taking up here city count here, count rows, filter cities where city in equal to all. If there is an all available for that particular person, then I just want to make a count of it. It's going to show me as 1 or 0 for that particular person. Similarly, this is I've taken it for the city column. Similarly, I have just taken up here for the state column and also for the country column. I'm just taking three things. One is the filtered data. Another is all the data available on that. And the third one, whether all is available for that particular login user or not. These three values I'm taking up here for city, state, and countries. And then on continuation of the same DAX, I'm using another logic here, which is switch statement. Here I'm doing three kind of steps here because this is a hierarchical approach. It has to filter the city, state, and country. So in that case, we need to do this kind of logic here. So here I'm mentioning up here, city count is greater than 0 and state count is greater than 0 and country count is greater than 0, which means they have mentioned all kind of thing. If we have that, for example, here, I will show you here itself. So here you can take an example of this particular form, dynamic one hierarchy. On this thing, here the everything is nothing is all here. Sorry, for this particular thing, email ID we have, country name also we have Australia, state also we have now New South Wales, city also we have mentioned here. Whereas on the below example, you can see for this one Victoria and North, you can see we have Australia as a country name, state name as Victoria, and city name is all here. And the third use case, you can see it here, where it contains all for country, all for state, and all for city name. So this is what I'm actually taking up the count here. If I switch back here to PPT, if the city count is, which is actually all, is greater than 0, or state is greater than 0, or country is greater than 0, then I'm just loading this here to be load all the city, all the states, and all the countries here. That is the reason I'm taking up here the virtual tables of this particular thing. The count, whatever you see, it is just to check whether there is an all available there or not. That's what I'm using up on the switch statement. And here the city all is basically because if there is an all available, then I need to load everything, whatever is there on our master table. And that's the reason I'm taking up from geography city here. If you see here, that's what I'm doing up here. As we have all on the city, all on the state, all on the country, and I'm just loading up to be everything here. Now the next part here, if the city is greater than all, I mean, it's showing up all, state is also all, and country is also, but country here is not all, country is equal to 0. I mean, they have access to all the cities, all the states, but for a specific country. In that case, I'm just loading up here all the cities and then all the states, and country is in countries. I'm not using countries all here, with respect of this part here. The reason is because I just want to pass only one country for a particular person. For this, as an example here, you can see, this is the one here, United States here. And then you can see example also here, United Kingdom bikes, where it have a country name, United Kingdom. But state is all and city is all. It means they have access to all the states, all the city in the country of the United Kingdom here. Similarly, the third logic which I mentioned here is city count is greater than 0 and state count is equal to 0, which is they have a particular state, and also country, they have a particular country. In that case, only city I'm passing up here all, but for the state, I'm just showing only the which they have access, and also for the country, only which country they have access to that. If three of them is not applicable, in that case, I'm using only one specific city, specific state, and then a specific country here. This is how the logic works on this particular part. And also, you notice here the hierarchical nature which I'm telling up here. The reason is because country, state, and city, these are the three hierarchical flow. But here in this DAX, I'm just using in a reverse order. I'm just using a city first and then taking up the state value and then showing up here countries count here, because that's how the parent flows on this direction. And that's the reason I'm using up here whether this is greater than everything 1 or equal to 0, equal to 0 2 times, and this is equal to 0 3 times here. So by doing all this filtration here, if we take an example of this particular thing, which is if I go on this part, if I filter it to the Melbourne at take18.com, if I switch back to my first Power BI report, and then click on view as, selecting this dynamic for hierarchy, and then click on other user and selecting this Melbourne here, and click on OK. Then this is going to filter me everything what we are seeing up here. For this Melbourne, I think it's going to filter the city as well, correct? So it is filtered to Australia, but you can see everything here, bikes, accessories, clothing, but it is filtered only to the Melbourne city, and the center table is now filtered here. The reason is because the DAX query which we are written is actually filtering for this particular table and also the other table what we are written on this part. And that's the reason it's showing up here. In the previously, it was not linked, and that's the reason it was not filtering on the previous part. So right now we have filtered here. If I take an example of another user, which is, for example, Nord here. Nord is basically coming from, I think, Europe. If I click here and then click on view as again, using the same dynamic one hierarchy, instead of Melbourne, I'm using up here Nord. I click on OK. And here you can see Australia, Victoria, Melbourne, everything is filled here, country, state, and city. Whereas for the Nord part, it is showing up here country equal to France and state equal to Nord and city equal to all. So whatever inside to that city is available is going to show everything for that particular thing. So now we have filtered it to France. Again, you can see it showing up Europe, and in the country here showing up France, and territory, everything showing up here, bike, accessories, and clothing as well. And if you take an example of another one, which is the Canada at like18.com, it means they have access to all the countries inside to the all the states inside to the Canada here. You can click on view as, and then staying with the same thing, and Canada at like18.com, click on OK. And here you can see this information which is showing up here. Now state is showing up all, and we can see country is Canada, and also you can see on the top it is filtered now to Canada and North America here. That's how the hierarchical nature will work right. Now the next option here, yeah, if you have any doubt, please let me know. We can discuss that part. And the next part here is the optional one, which I will also show you that. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. All right. So moving on to the PPT again. The next part is the dynamic one optional here. Optional in the sense like I want to filter the geography as well as the category also here. So as an example of this part, for example, here you can see dynamic one optional where it is showing up here United States bikes. So they are responsible for the United States, but only for the bikes category. So I need to filter two of them. It may be possible that we have a value or we may not have value. Like here also you can see clothing. So they are responsible for clothing throughout the world. So whatever it is. So this is basically mentioned as category manager here, and this is country category manager role kind of thing. So in that case, what we need to do? So for that particular thing, everything is same as what we have done on the dynamic one hierarchical part. And also we need to add DAX calculations on the DIM product category table. And here you can see on the previous screen, I filtered DIM geography, I returned the DAX calculation. And this time I'm also using the DIM product category as well. So on the category part, I'm using the same logic because this is going to be reflect on another table. That's the reason we need to capture everything again, like the username and also the category all, and category count here. Similar thing what we have done on the city, state, and country, we are using the same thing here. Taking the category value of that filtered on a particular username and category all, whatever it is there in all, in DIM product category. And then if there is an all available on a DIM product category, in that case, we can use that. So finally, we need to use the same logic here because we have at this time only one category column. So we can directly use one single switch statement. If category count is greater than 0, which is if all is there, then we have to load all the category. If all is not there, in that case, we can just use the filtered data here. As an example on this slide, you can see we have United Kingdom bikes showing up here, all the bikes. On this, for example, the Canada, which is showing up here, it's going to show all the category here. Whereas here, UK, I mean United States bikes is going to filter country as well as the category. And the clothing is going to filter all the country, but only the category here. So as an example, if I just copy this option and then switch to view as again, and then click on dynamic one optional, that's the fifth one, and then copy and paste the email ID here and click on OK. So this has to be filter both the thing. One is the sales territory, which is, and also the category as well. Yeah, now you can see it is showing up only North America, and here also showing only bikes here. So we have a country name and also category here showing up here to be bikes alone here. And if I take an example of this thing, which is clothing at like18.com, and then view as, copy paste, and then click on OK. So this should show everything. You can see now it is showing North America, Europe, and Pacific. But here it's showing up only for the clothing category here. So the country name is all, state is also all, and city is also all. So it is not going to filter anything on that part. And here it is going to filter only the clothing here. So that's the thing, optional here. You want to filter category, you want to filter sales territory. If it is an optional one, then also you can also do that part here. So this is about the next row level security option here. Yeah, I hope I'm not too fast, but as you requested, so let me publish this report and I'll show you in Power BI service. As in the meantime, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Hey Adnan, I do not see any questions on the chat right now, But for all the attendees, if you have any question, feel free to drop a message on the chat. Otherwise, if you want, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. All right. So for example, which you asked already. So this is my Power BI service environment. And on this here, I have a semantic model. So once I publish here, I can just click on the three-dot icon. And here you need to click on security part. Then it's going to give me the list of available roles which I have created here. Even if it is a static role or a dynamic thing, still you need to click on a specific role and then you need to mention the email ID of that particular person. For example, if I want to assign to hazel@techedin.com, you can click here and then click on add and then click on save here. It means whenever Hazel logs in, then this is going to apply the static one table for Hazel here. If we have not shared it to Hazel, then it's going to open a blank report because the rollover security is not going to apply for it. You have to share the report, you have to share the data set. Yeah, please go ahead.
Can we use here intra ID also as airport?
Yeah, we can also use that. I'm using Entra ID itself here. Usually the best, thanks for asking. Usually the best practice is basically we need to use Entra ID group itself. We should not have to give permission to a single user. For this demo, actually I have given that, but in reality, it has to through Entra ID itself.
Yeah.
Because in Entra ID, we'll have the email ID for the particular person, right? But in Power BI semantic model, I mean, in the data set in Power BI, you have to keep the email ID itself. Sharing in Power BI service, it can be through Entra ID, but here you need to have a table which contains the email ID itself on your table.
Same for other security level also. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So about the questions, I do not see anything yet on the chat, Adnan. Like we have 5 minutes. Do you have any insights for a person who is, just trying to learn Power BI and how they can better manage their time or the things that they are trying to do? Just, some tips.
Yeah, that's a good one. So nowadays, as things are moving really fast compared to the previous years, that kind of thing, with the help of generative AI, I can say. So it's a kind of learning every day, at least 1 or 2 hours, minimum 1 hour. I can say you have to keep on a daily basis. Or if you are really occupied on daily one, then you can specify certain times on a weekends, like how we are doing it now. You need to learn, upgrade yourself, new thing which is happening on a daily basis. And you don't need to be overwhelmed about the latest feature which is coming up on every product of Microsoft, right? So you take your time and go with the flow. Don't need to be worry about the FOMO approach kind of thing. So take your time and learn specific tools and technology and try to be good in that particular part. And it also has to uh, capture your future. I mean, what's your future plan, as well as to your existing job here. If you're fulfilling both of them, then it's really good. And if you're moving your, I mean, you're planning your career to move to Power BI kind of thing. So learning Power BI alone is not enough these days. You have to be aware of either other Power platform like Power Apps, Power Automate, or else you need to, if you want to go on the data side, then you need to be aware of at least the SQL thing on that part. So Power BI plus SQL or Power BI, Power Platform kind of thing will be a good advantage for you.
So, Mohammed, how can download this file?
How to?
How to download this file? You told me now you have some link and we can download?
Yeah, I can share this information to the organizers, and hopefully they will provide some information on that.
Okay, and I think then those were some tips somebody should know if they are learning Power BI, because I know it's a pool of a lot of things, and
Yeah,
now that Microsoft is transitioning, Microsoft Fabric, so
yeah,
daily it's something that you have to keep up with. And
exactly.
when you are on top of everything, then only you are aware of what's happening and how to do it better.
Definitely correct.
All right. So with that, thank you so much, Adnan, and everybody. If you have any questions for Adnan, you can reach out to him. He's an amazing Power BI expert. So do reach out to him if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for having me as well.
Thank you so much to you too. All right. So next up, we have with us Rajendra Ongle, and he's going to talk about on-prem SQL Server data to Fabric Lakehouse. So another Power BI session. I think the continuation is going to be good because Adnan covered some aspects, and now Rajendra is going to talk about another aspect. So yeah, I mean it's good that we have so much information floating about Power BI. So hey Rajendra, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, I'm able to hear you, Ritika.
Okay, perfect.
Can you
Thank
hear?
you so much for coming here. Yes, I can hear you perfectly fine.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll leave the floor to you. You can share your screen. I'll confirm once it is visible. It
Yeah.
is visible. Oh, and then it went away. I see black
Now,
screen right now.
now,
Yeah,
you able to
no,
see?
mm, no. Maybe do you want to like
No,
close
it's
the
a black screen
presentation?
itself.
Yeah,
Okay. Give me a minute.
okay.
Let me reshare it.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Please continue.
Fine. Thanks, Ritika. Thanks, platform classmate team for giving this opportunity. I just come up with an agenda on-premises SQL Server data, how we are going to move it to the Fabric Lakehouse. Before moving on to this, I'll just try to give myself a little intro. I'm Rajendra, lead engineer at Bosch and reporting track lead at Microsoft Client Workplace and Microsoft certified trainer and 14 years of industry experience with working with the Microsoft tech stack with SSIS, RS, and past 7 years I'm working on the Power BI and community champion in the super user in the Power BI community as well. And if you want to get in touch, I started writing the blogs for data analytics and LinkedIn. And if you are planning to connect with me, and you can connect and we can discuss if you are having any questions on the topic. And today's topic is very interesting. Most of the organizations, how they're using the on-premises SQL database to make use of their activities and their environments part. So these on-premises data, how we are going to move it onto the Fabric Lakehouse, like how we are going to create a Fabric Lakehouse there, and what are the things that we need to set up for that gateway connection is how we are going to set up the gateway connections. And the security part, what are the types of securities and modifications we can try to enable on the server level and Fabric like on-premises database, how we will try to get in connect in the Fabric Lakehouse. And last, there are many ways to create the data flows as well. I'm going to showcase you the assigning and destination of the data flow activities and writing the data back to the further activities like a business intelligence, and we'll try to showcase that part also to you. I mean, by using the Power BI application. Last, if you have any questions, I'm going to take your questions, and also you can unmute yourself. You can post your queries in the chat box. I can answer. I'll just try to come up with a Microsoft Fabric. So this product has been released last year, 2023 in May, Microsoft built. It's a complete end-to-end analytics where we can try to get it integrate all our data management solutions. It's like whether it is a data ingestion to the business intelligence part, like whether if you're trying to working on the data engineering side, like working on the PySpark or also this kind of a coding, there are a lot of personas, different tools that are available in Microsoft Fabric, like as a part of integrations, or else maybe if you're making use of the creation of the data warehouse with SCD type tools, we can try to utilize the complete environment, complete package of analytics in one single environment, that is a Microsoft Fabric. Either we can choose a data engineering, we can go with the PySpark and R languages are supporting, and TSQL programming. Maybe if you are working on the structured data like a data warehouse, backend supporting languages on a TSQL, transaction SQL databases, and data ingestion like for pipeline building, we are going to make use of Azure Data Factories on the top of it, which is an, though previously it is a separate tool, we will call it as a Synapse Azure Data Fabric. Now, these are all has been integrated and we are calling it as a single environment, Microsoft Fabric. So if you're observing, there is a terminology name called One Lake and Lake House. So currently we are going to create the Lake House only in our Microsoft Fabric environment. So in one single One Lake, we can be able to create multiple lake houses too. So how we are going to create the lake house on a dedicated workspace and all, we are going to discuss in the demo part. If you're observing, these are the platforms like a data integration part, Azure Data Factory, it is getting supported. And if you're working on the data engineering related activities like building the ingestion of the data and trying to use, making the data in the cleaner part, we are going to use the data engineering with the different languages like PySpark and R languages, even the SQL languages, it is getting supported. And data warehouse like a structured data, which will be get loaded further activities for the business insights. So it will be get supported with the SCDs, all SCD type 2, but regularly in our projects also, we will use SCD type 2, which has been well used to store our historical data as well as current data. And the data science related, if you are any projects related to the data science like machine learning, programming, or IoT related projects, we can try to use the data science, which is one separate persona within the Microsoft Fabric. And previously, we are calling it as a real-time analytics. Now the name has been renamed in the 2024 build with a real-time intelligence, where if you are working on the sensor-related or a real-time analytics data, we can make use of another separate tool that is a real-time analytics, real-time intelligence related. These are all the things combined with business intelligence also available, where it is getting supported on the Power BI application. In the last, if you're observing, if there is any notifications, like if you want to get it trigger some alert kind of a notifications. Last year, this has been, this data activity is a preview feature. Now it has been general available as well. These are all the things where this data will be get stored. If you're observing, it is stored in the form of a One Lake. That is nothing but a data management solutions architecture. So Lakehouse is a conceptual architecture. We can create multiple lake houses within the one lake for each and every different projects. And if in an organization, we can see the different departments and segments. We can try to create multiple lake houses. These are all the things lake houses will be get stored in the form of a one lake. And the backend part, if you're observing the unified product experiences, and the security, we can try to create at the folder level, like just now Adnan explained, row level security, how we will try to configure. Similar way, we can try to configure in the table level, even in the folder basis too. For each and every workspace and even the lakehouse level also, we can try to configure the security. So currently it is a preview feature. So as I have an access to Microsoft related activities, which I'm currently working, I can showcase you the preview feature as well. And it will be get supported with the compute engine, the storing processes, and it is an auto scale. And even the semantic models, we can try to use it overall across all the different applications as per our requirement, as per our business rules. I just come up with an agenda like if you're observing the data engineering related, like execution of the Spark clustering program, we can try to configure. And data science related, maybe if you're trying to working on the data which is need to move on a faster manner, we can have a supporting languages like a Spark ML programming has been available, like a data science and Azure ML. And data analyst, which we will try to regularly use. I'm also coming on the Power BI background, where we will try to regularly use on the data warehouse, pulling the data into the real-time analytics and from there visualizations to the customer. These are all the things which has been combined, and even the data governance has been get integrated within the Microsoft Fabric, where we can try to reuse the assets for existing completed projects for the new development and new feature purpose. This is a complete control. And if you're observing, it's a complete lakehouse architecture, you can consider whether it is a file source systems like a semi-structured, unstructured to the databases like OLTP source systems like a structured information. We can try to follow the architecture like there is some like a medallion architecture which will follow like a bronze layer, silver, gold. Bronze is something like as is data, like original data. However, it is coming from the backend source system. It will be get stored in the bronze layer. We can create the lake houses in the form of a layers too, like a bronze, silver, gold layer. Bronze is something where we can try to keep up the same data, how the backend source system, like original data. And once if we can start processing the data by using the languages like from if you're working with the larger data sets, semantic models, we can try to make use of a notebooks. And maybe if your data models are smaller, like a data range site, we can go with the data flows as well. Notebooks, Spark jobs has been data flows has been get supported for larger data models. And once the data has been get processed, the data will be get stored in another layer, that is the silver layer, the processed data, cleansed data. Once the data has been cleansed up, next we will try to move to the curated data where we can get started with the business requirement, whatever the business need, the downstream manner, we can try to start storing our data into the gold layer. And from there, we want to share this analysis, the right analysis, the structured analysis to the customer. We can try to get it analyzed. The data will be get stored on the applications like Power BI. So from there itself, from the Microsoft Fabric itself, we can start creating the data models, like semantic models we are going to call it. And the data will be get stored in the form of a lake house, direct lake we are going to call it. We know in Power BI, if you are working on the Power BI desktop, we have two types of methods, import method, direct query method. Direct connection between the backend database to your application. And if you are coming up within Microsoft Fabric, once if you're trying to fetch the data from a gold layer, which is a structured layer, the data is structured. After the processing of bronze to the silver, silver to the gold, structured information, curated data, and the data will be get stored in the form of a direct lake from the one lake. So in one lake, as I said, we can have multiple lake houses, which will be get created for different type of projects. And why one lake is required? Maybe what is the benefit if it is having once we created or else working on the one lake? We can get rid of the duplicate of information. We don't have the no duplication of information at different level or else at different layers. And one more thing, we can have a scalability of the usage, like storage part, the data part. It will be an auto scale. The main advantage we can try to use for the different projects. If you have a data in the one lake for different different sub departments, also we can try to make use of it if the data is available in one lake. No duplication. So simple architecture for the data source to the preparation and data transformation. And the languages, if you are working on the larger data models, Spark jobs are there, and you can also make use of the notebooks. And if you're working with smaller semantic models, semantic data source systems, we can go with the data flows, just like an online Power Query editor, where we will do all the data transformations and so on. I will showcase to you how we are going to get created, but like a lake house architecture, how it will be and how we are going to navigate from one to another in the cloud-based environment. What's the benefit? Just now we discussed, everything will be on the cloud application, software as a services. We can see all the benefited activities and all the different tools and personas that are going to available in the cloud environment. And it isn't centralized administration where we can try to all the admin controls and storage is part or scalability of information we can try to configure. And it is a low code platform where most of our activities we can try to get it. A kind of a drag and drop mechanism with formulas and functions. And it is getting supported with different data personas as discussed in our previous slide. Data engineering, data science related, data warehouse, we can try to build it. And it has been have a single security control. So where you can define the security set, each and every level. You can create the lake house, you can create the security there. Even the table level and sub tables also we can create the security constraints, like a row level security, data level security, we can create it. And data governance, which has been supported there. We can reuse the assets and the resources which we are observing, like I'm going to showcase to you. We can reuse the same assets for the different projects as per the requirement and business needs. One more, if you are observing this architecture part related to how we are going to move our on-premises source systems to the Power BI. So I have provided the structured, unstructured source system. So once the lakehouse has been get created, there is a folders which will be get available, like a manager source system and unmanaged source system. Like a full source system, like the data is sensor related or else IoT related data, it will get stored in the form of an unstructured. And if you're working with the databases like on-premises databases, it will be get a structured information. So we can get it, pull this information either by using different applications like a pipelines, Azure Data Factory pipelines we can try to build, or even for the cleansing part, we are going to make use of data flow. So I'm going to showcase you the data flow processes now. And even the re-mirroring activity, which I am currently going with this, one of the concept and one of the project. So we can try to do the mirroring concepts too. Like parallelly, we can try to get it and reuse the similar environment for different applications. All this data will be get stored in the storage part. So CustoDB will be get supported, SQL language it is. And from there, we can start exposing the data to the global users by using the different applications, either from Power BI or notebooks. We can try to do still the cleansing, even the visualizations also, we can try to get it derived from notebooks. I mean, like a backend, it is in Databricks environment. See here, I'm going to create first a lakehouse. And before creating the lakehouse, we need a dedicated workspaces too. Just like how we will try to create the Power BI level workspaces, we are going to create a dedicated workspace, Fabric content related workspace. And from there, it is as easy as simple. So we can see the different tools that are going to available, like we can create a dashboards, or else you can showcase like streaming dataset models. We can also see different personas, which we discussed like that. And from there, we can create a lakehouse builder, Lakehouse Explorer, we are going to call it. And then we can read the data from the on-premises SQL. So for that, we need to configure some of the security settings. So I'm going to showcase you the complete security settings, how we are going to create the security part on on-premises SQL Server. So I'm going to install this, SSMS part. I'm going to create the login credentials to you. And then how these login credentials will be get helpful to get connected to the on-premises on cloud-based environment. It's as simple as I said, from Dataflow Gen 2, I'm going to get connected to it, SQL Server. So here on the right-hand side, if you're observing, the server names are mandatory. And very important to transfer the data in a secure manner, the data gateway connection is really very helpful to transfer where. So on premises to the cloud-based environment. So gateway is a mandatory here. So how we are going to turn on the gateway? So where we are going to configure this gateway connection in the demo part, I'm going to showcase there. And authentication kind, we have different authentications, like a basic as per the organization policy, we can try to authenticate the user and password names. So I'm going to showcase to you basic authentication method with creation of new login credentials from on-premises to the cloud-based environment. So these are the mandatory fields. If you're trying to plan to connect to the at the Power BI services level, once the lakehouse has been get created, these are the mandatory fields. Like a server instance is mandatory, gateway is required because you are transferring the data from on-premises to the cloud environment. And authentication can, once it is moved, so automatically we can try to schedule our reports by using these gateway connections. We don't need to transfer back again to and fro mechanisms. So this is one of the gateways. So let me navigate back to demo part, and then I will showcase to you how it will work on the processing part. If you're observing, this is an SQL Server Management Studio, which we regularly know from on-premises to the Power BI desktop application, how we are going to get connected. So once you pass our server details from SQL Server, we can easily get connected by passing this server details. So let me showcase to you this process. Currently, I'm using the Windows authentication locally in my desktop. You can provide it, database name also optional. It's as simple as easy. We can see the databases and everything, whatever the tables that are available in AdventureWorks. I'm going to take this as an example. So these are all the tables. It's an easy to get connected, and then we can do data cleansing in Power Query Editor and build the backend kind of a related reports and so on. Similar way, how we are going to create with an SQL authentication mechanism. So Windows authentication, currently I'm able to easily connect from Power BI Desktop. How we are going to create an login user in the SQL Server Management Studio. So for that, we have to get it configured here. So right click, properties on the server details level. Security, try to enable the SQL Server and Windows authentication mode. Select OK. Once it is done, you have to provide a global security. You can see here, security path. Try to create a new login because I want to get created with, not with Windows authentication mechanism. I want to get connect with a server authentication where my colleagues, team members has to be get connected. New login. Here, you can see the multiple pages, general, server rule, and user mapping on the left-hand side top corner. These three configurations are mandatory. So we have to thoroughly verify and try to cross-verify this authentication as well as the password. So if you can through this step, it is an as easy as simple to connect from the Power BI services from data flows as well. So how we are going to configure? The first activity. General, currently it is a Windows authentication selected. I'm going to choose the SQL Server, giving the name as PPC. Yes. Login name. Password, try to provide a strict password with uh, alphabetical order as well as a numeric with special characters. Provide it. I had to uncheck password expiration as well. So I just want to follow this enforce policy. And database, master database, as of now, currently I'm holding with one database that is an AdventureWorks. And the language, I'm going to choose it as an English United States. This is the first step, the first general part, the first page. Once you configure, next two pages we have to configure thoroughly. So these are all very important. Where the system administration role we have to configure, we have to get it authenticate and the Power BI services level to navigate and try to connect. So here, server role, try to configure the system administrator, these two. Public already by default it is enabled, system admin role. And third one, this step is very important, which database you want to get connected on the server level. So as of now, I'm holding one database, AdventureWorks. Try to map it with this as a username, login details, and the schema, DBO schema here. And try to configure DB owner as well. So these are all administration team will do. If not available, we have to do it on everyone in my project as well. One of the project working in Microsoft, I have to do it on my own where I need to get connected from SQL Server on cloud environment. So these three pages are very important, general, server rule, as well as user mapping. Try to configure it. And once configured, try to cross check whether you are able to connect with these credential or not. So you can see here the login which we created, PPCL, you can have to PPCS, you can see the username. Just try to restart your SSMS, restart it. And try to connect from here for testing part. Whether you are able to connect or still if there is any errors, it will be get notified. I'm trying to test, not with the Windows authentication. I'm going with the SQL Server. Yes. You can see the same one of the database that is available. So I had tested, I'm able to get connected. So how we are going to, the similar way, how we are going to get connected on the on-premises from on-premises to the cloud-based environment data flow. This is very, very important. Please observe here. If you start working on the, like Microsoft Fabric, we need, by default, they're providing the trial release. We can use all the configuration, all the mechanisms. We can test it. as per our requirement. We can get connected to the data flows. We can use the data engineering activities and everything. And how it looks like, it's just like you can just type app.powerbi.com for Services Connect. For Services Connect. So by default, I have already enabled the trial release, which is valid for 24 days. And if you want to make use of really in your projects, it's not going to support for the pro license. We have to make use of premium per user license or Fabric capacity. Those two are enabled. Fabric with higher versions like F64 and so on, more than that. So currently I'm using premium per user. I'm the premium per user here. So I can able to have all the access and all the configurations I can perform. So where we are going to get connected to the Microsoft Fabric. So once you enable and we are connecting to the app.powerbi.com. You can see in the left hand side down corner, currently it is open with, because I have used app.powerbi.com, right? I can see the vertical here, the vertical scroller, currently it is in Power BI. Other than that, in Microsoft Fabric, these are all different personas. These are the different tools that are available. Whatever, if you're trying to get connected to the Synapse data engineering related, we can make use of it, like Spark languages and notebooks we can try to get created, and even the data science related. And maybe if you want to build a data warehouse related projects, we can make use of these personas, which is different applications and platforms will be supported in one single environment. So just try to select to this Microsoft Fabric here. You can see all the personas at a time. First, if you are trying to working on this project, we need to have a dedicated workspace. That's what I said. We need to have to create one dedicated workspace. How we are going to create it? It's as simple as how we will try to create the workspace. Let me showcase to you. Let me create one simple workspace. Workspace name is PPCM demo. And here currently I'm using the trial. Maybe if you are having an access pro license, it will not work out for these administration. I mean, like Microsoft Fabric related activities like a Lakehouse Builder and everything. I'm using the trial version only. Apply. So currently a workspace has been created with the Fabric content. So I haven't configured with the premium per user content. So by trial, it is going to create it as a daemon with Fabric content. So how we are going to create a lakehouse then? So in each and every workspace, we can see all the different personas again, where we are going to see. So here, you can see all the personas. If you can select the more options, just like I have showcased to you, data engineering, data factories like Dataflow Gen 2, data science, data warehouse, you can see everything here. Data Power BI as well. First, I want to create one lakehouse where we are going to do that activity. So that is available at the data engineering part. You have to create the first a lakehouse to store our data in the one lake. We can create multiple lake houses too, which will be get integrated and it will be get stored in one lake, which is a lake house is a conceptual architecture in one lake. You can do the data cleansing and you can also start creating the reports. Even you can try to build the data modeling activities too. I'm creating first a lake house here. Give the name to this. LH. Lakehouse name is PPCM LH Lakehouse. So whenever you can start creating a lakehouse, you can see a folder on the left hand side, two different folders, one with table and another with the files. Files is an unmanaged source system like unstructured, semi-structured data. If you are working on it, you can get it extracted from this. Even you can try to extract the external data source systems like Azure ADLS, or maybe if you are working with Amazon Web Services, you can get it extracted via shortcuts. And tables is another folder which you are observing on the left hand side, Explorer, Lakehouse Explorer. It is a structured information, completely structured data which will be get stored. Anyway, I'm going to get connected to the structured information from on-premises SQL Server to the cloud-based environment. So my tables will be get visible on the, connected tables will be visible on this folder that is tables. You can see here folders for unstructured, semi-structured information will be get extracted from here by using the shortcuts like, as I said, ADLS or Amazon Web Services, Google Sheets, and so on. In center also, you can observe get data into your current lakehouse. You can use the files data extraction. And if you want to do some trial and error with some sample data, we can work with the sample data also, like a COVID related data, or you can use the traffic from the data world. We can try to fetch it and you can work accordingly. So currently, I have to extract the data from a data flow gen to new data flow gen to. From here, we can get it, extract the data, or simple as I said, it's almost similar view as like a Power BI. You can see the in the lakehouse also get data from here. You can extract the data from this too. These are the different extractions part we can it will be get supported. I'm using the data flow, select it, extraction of the data from on-premises. It's all depending upon the network speed as well as the bandwidth, the speed and accessing part. Is that similar view as like get data? We can see all the activities, like how we will try to, once you open the Power BI desktop application, you can see all the source systems from here. We can get it extract and we can load the tables and do the cleansings too. It's fine. How I'm going to get connected to the on-premises SQL to this cloud-based environment? I have to get it imported. So import the data from an SQL server. So this is the one which I have showcased in my presentation. Server name, either you can create the parameter wise, you can configure parameters creations, we can do it, or normally you can just try to copy paste the server details here. For the automation part, most of the time we will try to create the parameters to move our data from one environment to another, like development to the testing to the production environment by using the parameter, which is simple. So I'm going to use it normal, providing the simple activity like taking the reference of the server details. Database name here, we have to provide it, which is an optional. Either you can provide it, or maybe if you want to see all the databases that has been listed, you can see all the databases too. As I mentioned, gateway is a mandatory. So just want to cross verify whether my gateway is online or offline, how we are going to cross verify. So already opened it, a gateway connection also, and the gateway name is MS Live Fabric is currently it is online. I just want to cross verify in my services to whether it is an online or offline. I mean, maybe if it is an standalone mode. Opening one more web browser, app.powerbi.com. On the settings part, we can have an option name called gateway storage area. We can see it here. Settings part, you can just try to select it, manage connections and gateways. You can just try to check it whether the on-premises is online or standalone. If it is a standalone, you just have to refresh it because already it is on. So I'll just try to refresh it here. Status with online. You can see here, status will be get online. So from here onwards, we can get started and where to pass our data, transfer our data securely from the on-premises to the cloud-based environment. We'll just try to configure this. Navigating back to my data connection. Here, authentication connectivity part, I'm going to use the basic authentication. Other than the basic, as I said, organizational service principal, I mean, even the Windows authentication, it is getting support. I'm going to use basic authentication. So I have created the username just as it is, PPCS, and password I need to provide. And the data configuration part, the privacy level, we can configure either as a private or as per the data security part, we can try to configure as is. I'm using username as PPCS user, password. Gateway is mandatory. You can see the gateway is available. MS Live Fabric is enabled now. It will take some time for connecting to that source system. You can see the AdventureWorks database now from this on-premises SQL server. Like that, we can try to move all our on-premises data source system to the cloud. And from here itself, we can scheduling part also. I will just, if time permits, I can try to showcase to you that part too. You can see the database, AdventureWorks is available. Fine. I'm going to select some of the tables from this AdventureWorks, like regular, we know, fact table and some of the dimension tables. I'm going to choose it, related tables. And where we are going to store this table. So as I mentioned, I'm going to store this table in my lakehouse, which I have created PPCM LH lakehouse. So let's try to
One
select some other
question.
table. Yes, tell me.
On creation of Fabric gateway created automatically.
No, I have downloaded it. We have to download
Okay.
it. Yeah, we have to
Okay.
download it. So here, you can download it from here. You can download it from this gateway. So regularly in our real-time part, we are going to use on-premises standard mode. Not two types of gateways we have. We are going to use the standard mode where this gateway should be installed in some dedicated servers. If there is an
Okay.
admin person is there, they can do that activity. If there is no administrator person, we have to do it. We have to take a control of Windows Server, which is going to up and running 24/7. There we have to install this application. We have to configure it just like this. You're
That's
seeing, right?
already done. That's why you have just configured
Yes,
it.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
And
Okay.
I have one question.
Tell me your
I
question.
actually, if I restart system, so we need to open again the gateway, or it's automated
If
mode.
basically, even if you are restarting the system, this is locally I have installed this gateway. Basically, that's what I said. We will install in a dedicated Windows server, not in our personal missions. Got it?
Okay.
This
Okay.
gateway is maybe if you are turning off your laptop or mission systems, okay, that should be always online so that your data will be securely transferred from on-premises to the cloud as per the scheduled time.
Oh,
Okay. So let's try to extract and connect some of the tables. And also we can choose an option like which lakehouse we have to choose. I mean, like as of now I have created PPCM LH lakehouse. We have an option to configure which lakehouse we have to. Maybe I have multiple lakehouses in my different workspaces. We can choose it, which lakehouse you want to store these tables and information to. Let's try to connect some of the tables like regular tables like a dimension date table. I'm going to choose product table, resellers, date table chosen, okay, and internet sales table. Okay, four or five tables I'm going to choose it. Geography table also I'm going to choose it. Five tables I'm choosing: date, geography, product, resellers, which is a fact table, like all important metrics I'm going to maintain it here. It's a similar view how we will try to connect from the Power BI desktop level. You can see the similar view like this. In the similar manner, you are observing the first 2000 records as per the data connection and the services too. What we will do next, we know we can just try to load these tables onto the data flow, which is already created, data flow 1. Try to create it. You are observing the similar view as like a Power Query editor in our Power BI desktop. This is a Power Query, online Power Query editor, which you are connecting on the directly on the cloud-based environment. All the tables, queries will be get visible to you on the left-hand side. You can see the table information. And in the center, you are observing the data with formula bar, or how you are getting connected, and right hand side, the data transformations. Similar view, how we will try to see the Power Query editor, all the areas, right? Regular key areas like a left hand side, queries, center data, formula bar, and data transformations on the right hand side. Similar view. On the top of it, you can perform as per our requirement the data cleansing. My data is very clean. What I will do in this instance, I will just try to showcase you some important features too, which has been recently released from the Microsoft. So they have recently added, if your data is very big, kind of a data extraction, in the data flows part, there is an option name called fast copy. So in the scaling, you can try to enable it. Allow use of fast copy connector. This is a recent addition. You can enable it if you're working with the very larger data models, if you're working on the data size with GBs, not from simple data source system. You can enable this fast copy connected to. And remaining things are as common. So if you are already familiar with on-premises, I mean cloud-based data flow, you can see the gateway connections, and here also in the global part gateway connections, whatever the changes detected. Select OK. And here, I'll just try to showcase you different views that are available in the data flow. So what are the different views that are available? You can see here, down corner, top right hand side, down corner, there is a data destination. We will discuss that part also. And here the query view is available. And even this diagram view where we can try to transfer or also get connected to it. Like further data transformations, we can try to build it. Like these are the data transformations. And here also we can see the fast copy, require fast copy. This option is also get enabled to move from one level to the another, just like a pipeline builder, we can navigate it, the data. This is a currently this is an diagram view, and last view is the data view, which we already aware, we know this is the data view, currently the data view too. Down you are observing some data. What about this last view, schema view, which is nothing but maybe still I want to change the types of data types. Okay, connected table columns, data types. I can try to change it by using this last schema view. So these are all the columns as per the connected tables. We can select it. The table information will be get available. We can the required columns we can try to enable. Unwanted columns we can try to delete it from here itself. Okay, it's the schema last view. This is a regular one. So in the data flows part, this is an addition of it. So I'm just trying to showcase to you this part. Okay. Let me use the data view. Fine. How we are going to choose the destination to store all these tables into the cloud environment? This is important. Please observe here, query settings. Here, the data destination already, I have created a workspace, PPCM demo workspace, and the lakehouse name is PPCM lakehouse. So when you are trying to configure, already that lakehouse has been chosen. Maybe by mistaken or else maybe if you want to move from this lakehouse to some different lakehouse, we have a chance to move this data to the different data destination lakehouses too. You have a settings button here, try to select it, select it. You can see the configuration credentials, that is by using a lakehouse. We don't need to check anything. It's already automated and we have already connected with an organizational account only. Next. So here we have all the workspaces as well as lakehouse functionalities, which we are going to create it. It will take some time, so please observe. So see here, what are the workspaces that are available on my app.powerbay.com and everything. Even these are all the workspaces. Maybe I want to choose in a different workspace to store these tables. We can choose it. So maybe HG Bash demo. I can select it, I can navigate, I can move all these tables to this particular lake houses too. So this is one of the HG lake house. And currently we already created a dedicated lakehouse here. So we'll try to store in our dedicated lakehouse, PPCM lakehouse itself, which is an PPCM demo workspace. So try to navigate it. This is our workspace. This is our lakehouse. Choose it, right workspace, and as well as the lakehouse. Otherwise, see here, when we can move it and also we can easily identify our data to move from one different workspace to our as per if you're trying to build the projects, we can see all the workspaces as well. So try to select the right workspace. You can see by
Rajendra,
default.
sorry.
Yes, yes.
Just a time check. We have like 5 minutes left on the session.
Okay. Almost completed.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
You can see the by default one of the table dimension geography. In the future, as of currently it is one table is choosing. We can try to observe all the tables also like a geography. 5 tables we are chosen like a product, factory sellers and everything. So automatically by default lowest data table which will get chosen, dimension geography. So I'm just trying to select next here. So I'm storing these are all the tables into my lakehouse PPCM lakehouse. See here also still, if you want to remove the columns or else maybe if you want to cross verify what is the source data type and the destination data type, we can try to configure. And still, if you want to perform some new transformations on the top of each and every table, we can stop this automatic settings. We can add other transformations to still if you want to get it added on the top of the tables. So by default, I'm using the automatic settings, save settings. So these are all the tables, right, which will be get stored in the lakehouse name called PPCM lakehouse. So we haven't published it. So automatically, are we going to see all the tables? No, we haven't published these tables to be get stored and available in the destination PPCM lakehouse. So how we are going to do? You can see an option name called publish. So publish right away. That means publish now, publish later. So I'm going to make use of publish right away. Lot of new features are getting added. Even the Copilot has been added in the data flow, where we can add new transformations and new transformation mechanism on the top of each and every data flow. It will take some time, and before that, I'll just try to navigate to my lakehouse, refresh here. Few minutes, and then I will stop. Okay. And if you have any questions, please post it and I will answer. Either you can refresh because this is a completely structured table, which I'm moving from on-premises to the cloud. The files will be get available in the tables part only, not in the files folder. So files folder, what information means? If you are working on the unstructured, semi-structured data, those files, those information that will be get visible to you on the files part. Like maybe you are connecting from the external source systems like Google Drive, or else maybe AWS, Azure Web Services, or ADLS. These things will be get available anywhere blob related. Okay, JSON files, these things, it will be get available on the files part. So let me refresh it. And how this data will be get stored. So in this, once it will be get loaded, the data will be get stored in the Fargate file format. So maybe my backend file is having MBs or GBs. Once it will be get loaded onto the Fabric Lakehouse and these tables, it will be get stored in the form of Delta Parquet format file. So which is the columnar data, and it is in compressed information in the form of a KBs, lowest information it will be get available. Refreshing. The table should be visible here. See here. As a part of preview, you can try to see the previews too. It's still loading, so that's why I just got the notification. Couldn't load this table. See, few minutes and then I will stop. Okay, sorry for if I take additional time. Almost complete.
All right.
And restriction, where we are going to configure the row level security as per the previous session, right? So here you can configure the row level security just like we can configure the data and the table bases and even the folders. Like that, it's a preview feature, as I said. We can try to configure the row level security on this top. So you can see the manage one lake data access. You can configure like a read write permissions. Okay, we can configure at the folder level to the sub column level as well. And even the lakehouse part, we can give the permission as a read write role access. So let me showcase it very quick. So see here, types of roles that are available. Assigned roles. So see here, these are the different roles that are available like a read write, reshare, executable. So currently I'm the administrator. I have a complete access. Maybe I want to see only the read access. I can try to configure read access too. So these are the different types of roles. Folder level we can configure even at the table level. Workspace and more like it's a one security, right? We can configure the lakehouse part, even the data warehouse related, and even the semantic level, semantic model level also we can configure this access, I mean like a row level securities, access level securities. Fine. So see here, just a few minutes only. See here. Currently, these tables are available in the Lakehouse and where we are going to write the statement. So I'll just try to configure to store almost my data, all these tables into the SQL Analytics endpoint. You can see the similar view. These are all the tables in the form of a query, DBO schemas, and everything. From here, we can see the report navigation. We can navigate almost similar look and feel of Power BI report. We can try to navigate it to the report also. So these are all the tables. As a semantic model, we can configure. So we can see all these tables in the Power BI application, which will be get generated on your services itself. So I will come to the conclusion. So on-premises SQL, most of the organizations are choosing because instead of using this on-premises having the cost-based things, we can make use of the complete activities on the Fabric environment. And it is a one-stop solution for all our analytics needs where we can try to work on data engineering stuff or else a data warehouse if you want to build it. And even the new projects if you want to navigate or else if you want to working on the new projects, we can support and we can also have all the tools and functionalities in Microsoft Fabric. And if you have any questions, concerns, please post it in the chat box. And recently I have added the same content in my blog, Data Analytics Group. So you can just go through it if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajendra. Thank you so much. This is
I
like
just
a
taken
really
few
vast and
minutes additional
rapidly
time.
taking. No worries. It's really vast and rapidly changing topic. New features
Yes,
are
yes,
added,
yes.
being added
It will
every
take
day.
more time. Yes, yes, correct.
Yeah, it's
Thanks,
really hard to wrap up.
organizers. Thanks to Raju and Ritika for giving this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Right. We don't have any questions in the chat, but audience, we have posted